Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. He's a tough Texas rancher. She's a suburban HOA president with a clipboard and a God complex. When their worlds collide over a barbed wire fence, all hell breaks loose, literally. Trespass, bulls, lawsuits, and a showdown the internet won't forget. I don't care what HOA you think you run. On this side of the fence, I'm the law. I'm Wesley Randall, rancher, former Marine sergeant, and full-time keeper of my peace and land. I run a registered heritage cattle ranch in central Texas, about 300 acres of real red-blooded territory, fenced, zoned, insured, and fully legal under state ag code. My bulls aren't pets. They're legacy genetics, engineered, bred, and damn well documented. I don't do games, and I sure as hell don't do neighborhood politics. About 5 years ago, across County Road 44, they built Oakview, a cookie-cutter HOA community with manicured lawns, beige stucco boxes, and wine moms named something like Cassidy or Brooke. At first, they kept to themselves. We were different worlds, separated by a ditch, a barbed wire line, and about 2 centuries of American philosophy. Then Karen Melrose showed up. She was elected president of the HOA last year, and it took her less than 3 months to start sniffing around the fence line like a possum with entitlement issues. She first came by on a Wednesday morning. Big sunglasses, clipboard, voice like condescension boiled down into vapor. I had just finished checking the feeders when she waved at me like I was her pool boy. "Mr. Randall," she called out, "I'm here on behalf of Oakview's HOA committee. We'd like to discuss community access to the open space south of your livestock enclosure. We believe it could make a wonderful shared parkland for our residents." I didn't even take the time to answer. I pointed to the large metal sign posted on my fence in red. "Private property. No trespassing. Trespassers will be reported and prosecuted." She gave me this tight, patronizing smile, the kind people use when they're pretending not to be insulted. "Well, we're hoping to create a neighborly dialogue." I cut her off. "Ma'am, this is an operational agricultural site. This land is zoned under state ag code, under my name and legal deed. This is not a park. It is not your business. And I am not interested in dialogue." That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, a letter showed up in the mailbox. HOA letterhead, no return address, formatted like a summons. It listed unapproved fencing, non-conforming livestock shelters, and environmental sanitation concerns related to uncontained bovines. It was so absurd I nearly choked on my coffee. My fencing. The same fencing that passed USDA inspection last spring. Shelters built with a licensed contractor and registered with the local ag office. I ignored it. Then came another letter. Then 3. Then one addressed to my wife, Marie, urging her to reconsider the viability of large animal farming adjacent to residential life. I started keeping them in a file I labeled comedy. Still, it was more annoying than funny, especially when I caught 2 HOA board members standing across the road taking photos of my barn with their iPhones like they were building a case. I walked out with a feed bucket, stared them down, and asked if they wanted an agricultural tour or maybe just a cease and desist. They scurried off. About a month later, Marie told me that Karen had come by again, this time when I was out at the feed co-op, knocking on the front door, clipboard in hand, asking about community environmental impact studies. Marie doesn't take crap either. She told her to leave before the bulls started getting agitated by her perfume, and still, it didn't stop. Karen was trying to reframe her obsession as some sort of civic mission. She'd talked to other HOA members about reclaiming space for the children, like this was stolen land and not my legally documented family acreage. I had a brief consultation with my attorney. She told me exactly what I already knew. The HOA had 0 legal jurisdiction outside their development. 0. The best they could do was write angry letters or try to make trouble. So, I installed new motion-triggered cameras facing the eastern and southern fence lines, updated the alert system to feed directly to my phone, and posted 2 more signs. "Do not enter. Livestock area. Entry is a crime." That was my line in the sand. I figured if Karen had any sense, she'd take the hint. Turns out, Karen doesn't have much sense at all. The first time I considered adding razor wire to the top of the eastern fence line, it wasn't because of coyotes. It was because of letters. Paper threats, HOA-typed nonsense that kept arriving with a frequency that suggested someone on their end believed I might one day fold. I didn't fold when I was 20 and staring down an ambush in Kandahar. I wasn't about to fold now because a suburban Napoleon didn't like the sight of bulls grazing near her view line. Each envelope was a variation on the same fiction, that my barns were non-compliant, my fencing unauthorized, my herd unsanitary. One even claimed that the scent of my animals violated atmospheric quality standards. I laughed so hard reading that one I damn near spit coffee into the fire pit. Marie wasn't amused. She grew up on a cattle ranch too, and she hated bureaucratic overreach more than I did. But she also knew how these things escalated. "They're building a paper trail," she warned one morning, flipping through the latest 2-page accusation. "Even if it's junk, it's persistent. It's designed to look legitimate if it ends up in front of someone who doesn't know better." I nodded, chewing the end of a toothpick, watching the southern pasture through the living room window. Let them. I'll match their pile of nonsense with 10 years of inspections, certifications, permits, and livestock registration files. Hell, I'll frame my last USDA rating and hang it by the front gate. But Marie was right. This wasn't about facts. It was about pressure. HOA Karen, in her infinite audacity, had decided to grind me down. It got worse when I noticed her SUV parked across the road more than once, engine running, just sitting there like she was conducting surveillance. One time, she had 2 other women in the car with her, both holding tablets, clearly snapping photos or typing notes. I stepped outside and stood there, arms crossed. She didn't even flinch, just looked at me through her oversized sunglasses and smiled, then drove off like I was the one out of line. Austin, my nephew, saw her too. He's 20, home from college for the summer, and helps out with maintenance. He caught her walking up and down the roadside one afternoon, holding her phone up toward our barn like she was documenting a crime scene. "She keeps zooming in on the feeding shed," he said. "You think she's trying to claim it's too close to her property?" "She can claim whatever she wants," I replied. "It's been in the same spot since before her HOA even existed." That weekend, I installed 2 new infrared perimeter sensors, one facing the eastern fence line that bordered their development, and another covering the old cattle path near the back gate. I also updated the camera system to trigger snapshots to my email the second movement was detected near any ingress point. Then came her formal letter, this time marked Final Notice. It read like a ransom note disguised as legalese. She demanded I allow representatives of the Oakview HOA Planning and Compliance Subcommittee onto my land for an environmental access assessment. I laughed. Then I reread it to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. She wanted to send a team, likely herself and 2 clipboard warriors, onto my ranch to evaluate safety and compatibility of agricultural activities adjacent to residential zones. She included a line about how my failure to cooperate would be interpreted as non-compliance with local community standards. Community standards? We weren't even in the same jurisdiction. Her HOA bylaws ended 200 feet short of my fence. My land was zoned under entirely different county statutes, protected by ag exemptions, and legally grandfathered beyond their scope of influence. That night, I scanned and sent the letter to my lawyer, Rochelle Montgomery, who replied within an hour. "This is laughably illegal. Don't respond. But do keep the letter." The next day, I went out with Austin and we posted 2 new laminated signs every 30 feet along the eastern fence. No entry. Private agricultural property. Trespassing is a criminal offense. I even had them printed in Spanish just to cover all bases. Marie brought us lemonade while we worked. "I bet you anything she's planning something bigger," she said. "This feels like a setup." I didn't disagree. Karen was a pressure cooker in a pencil skirt. The way she stared through her SUV window, calculating cold, she had the eyes of someone who'd already decided she was right and the law just hadn't caught up yet. We triple-checked every gate, locked the tool shed, synced the alerts to all our phones. My property was tight. Still, something in my gut told me this wasn't over. I was hauling hay bales that Sunday morning when I got the alert. It was just after 10. The sun had barely burned through the clouds and Marie was setting up for the church potluck. I just backed the trailer up near the southern paddock when my phone buzzed. Motion detected, east perimeter, camera 3. I opened the notification expecting maybe a stray deer or another nosy HOA member trying to sneak a photo from the road. But no, it was her. Karen Melrose, president of Oakview HOA, in a wide-brimmed straw hat and khakis so crisp they looked like they came off a mannequin. She had gloves on, gardening gloves no less, and was dragging a collapsible ladder out of her SUV. I stopped breathing for a second. The image feed showed her setting the ladder against my eastern fence, right below one of my fresh "No Trespassing" signs. She looked around like she was trying to act casual. Then, without hesitation, she climbed. I tapped Marie's number, already walking toward the truck. "Karen's on the damn fence," I said. "She brought a ladder. She's climbing over right now." "You're kidding." "I wish." I sped down the access road, wheels spitting gravel, flipping through the feed on my phone. She was already over the fence and walking along the edge of the pasture. She had her phone out, recording something and narrating it like this was a National Geographic special. "Here we are, on the property of Wesley Randall," she said, voice smug through the mic. "We're going to finally document whether this livestock setup poses a community health risk." I didn't catch the rest because that's when the camera auto-switched. Another alert, movement near the livestock barn. She was walking directly into the bull paddock. By the time I turned onto the gravel trail and approached the main gate, I saw Austin running from the side of the house, phone in one hand, jacket flapping. "She's inside the stock field," he shouted. "She's filming the damn animals." He jumped into the passenger seat and we sped down the drive. Karen had crossed into the central section, the pasture we keep the big boys in. My prize sires. 1,400-pound slabs of muscle bred from champion genetics. They're used to people they know. They are not used to some HOA zealot sneaking through their turf, waving a phone around. We pulled up to the south gate just in time to see her walk closer to the watering trough, talking to herself and pointing toward the fencing. I slammed the brakes and leapt out. She didn't even flinch. "Karen!" I barked. "Get the hell out of there!" She turned, startled but trying to keep composure. "I'm performing a visual inspection. You're fencing." That's when Red, my biggest bull, noticed her. Red was a legend, black with a streak of white across his flank, short-tempered but reliable, unless spooked. He picked his head up, stared straight at her, and snorted. Karen, for the first time, looked nervous. I whistled and slapped the side of the truck to distract Red. It worked for about 2 seconds. Then he huffed again and began moving forward. Not running, just a slow, deliberate walk. The kind bulls do when they're warning you, "You don't belong here." Karen turned toward me, phone still recording. "Do something." She snapped. "He's coming toward me." "He's not aggressive," I said. "Unless you're trespassing." Which, just to clarify, you are. Then Red picked up speed. Karen bolted, sprinting in her flats across hard clay soil, trying to circle back toward the ladder, but she'd left it at the far end, and Red was gaining. She veered toward the fence line. Wrong move. That just cut her off from the gate. I jumped back in the truck, horn blasting, while Austin hopped the gate with the stock whistle, trying to get Red's attention. "Wrong side," I yelled. "Get her toward the feeding pen." Karen was shrieking by then, not because Red had done anything. He hadn't even broken into a run, but because the idea of being stalked by a 1-ton bovine seems to peel the confidence right off a person. She made it near the fence, panting, flushed, arms flailing. She grabbed a section of the wire panel like she was trying to pull it apart. Then she turned and screamed, "You set me up! You tried to kill me with your damn animals." Austin and I were already approaching her carefully. Red had slowed again. Marie was at the top of the driveway with binoculars. I waved at her. Thumbs up, situation under control. Red was still just watching, now chewing slowly like he'd lost interest. "Karen," I said calmly, "you broke into private agricultural property. On camera. You entered a restricted livestock area. On camera. You provoked the animals. On camera. And now you're screaming at me in a panic because you scared yourself." She looked like she wanted to spit. "Go ahead," I added. "I've got the whole thing recorded from 6 angles. And don't forget your ladder. We'll keep it safe for the cops." Karen didn't answer. She just turned and stomped, sweaty, dusty, and red-faced, back along the fence line, trying to find a way out. We didn't stop her. We just watched. You'd think, after nearly getting flattened by a bull, someone like Karen would find the humility to disappear for a few weeks. Maybe reconsider her career as a petty dictator. But no. Karen was made of the same stuff that keeps mosquitoes flying into bug zappers, relentless, oblivious, and somehow always louder than necessary. By that afternoon, she'd called the sheriff. Marie and I were in the kitchen, reviewing the footage from the incident, when the first cruiser pulled up. Deputy Willard, young guy, straight shooter, used to ranch calls, stepped out looking already tired. I met him at the gate with a USB stick in one hand and a pitcher of sweet tea in the other. "She really called this in?" I asked. "She did," he sighed, rubbing his neck. "Claimed you, and I quote, Weaponized livestock in an intentional act of domestic aggression. I stared at him for a beat, then handed him the tea. You want to see what actually happened, or just arrest the bull? He chuckled and waved me inside. We sat him down, pulled up the full footage from all 4 angles, Karen dragging the ladder out of her trunk, placing it against the fence, scaling it without hesitation, narrating into her phone about some inspection, then strutting through the pasture like she was scouting real estate. Then the moment Red noticed her panic, her sprint, her attempt to peel open my fence, her accusation. Willard leaned back and let out a low whistle. Damn, he muttered. She really just climbed over. Like it was a damn backyard hedge. She left the ladder behind, I added. Austin moved it into the garage so no one trips on it. You want it? I'll grab it before I leave. What about injuries? None that I saw. Unless you count a bruised ego. Austin chimed in from the hallway. She screamed like a banshee and called Red a horned psychopath. Red's a registered Brahmin, I said. 4th-generation show champion. Hasn't hurt a soul in 12 years. Until today, he's only ever chased feed buckets. Willard shook his head, taking notes. All right, I'll file the incident as trespassing. She's already trying to push for some kind of felony charge on you. Don't worry, it won't go anywhere. But I gotta write it all down just in case she tries to take it to court. She will, Marie muttered from the doorway. She looked like someone who's already drafting the lawsuit in her head. She wasn't wrong. The next morning, I got served. Not by the sheriff, by a private process server in a blazer who looked as out of place on my ranch as a Starbucks barista at a tractor pull. He handed me a padded envelope, nodded politely, and speed-walked back to his car like I might throw a branding iron at him. Inside the envelope, a civil complaint, Karen Melrose versus Wesley Randall, filed in county court, seeking $500,000 in damages for emotional distress, reckless endangerment, intentional infliction of trauma via unsafe livestock conditions, and my personal favorite, malicious agricultural negligence. She claimed I had failed to prevent foreseeable harm by not fencing off the bulls more securely. She alleged I intentionally intimidated her with dangerous animals and allowed known aggressive bulls to roam freely in a manner inconsistent with modern livestock safety practices. I scanned the whole thing twice, then walked into the kitchen and dropped the envelope on the table like it was a dead possum. Marie picked it up, read the first page, and laughed so hard she had to sit down. Malicious agricultural negligence, she wheezed. Is that even a thing? Not according to anyone with a brain. I called Rochelle Montgomery, my lawyer, and by noon, we had a full response drafted. She'd seen HOA types try stunts like this before, but never with a trespassing video that basically amounted to a filmed confession. She walked into a working pasture on her own, Rochelle said. No invitation, no permission. Posted warnings everywhere, and you have audio and video from 5 angles. Let her take it to court. It'll be like watching someone try to fight gravity. Still, we weren't taking chances. We backed up every video file, every photo, every sensor log. Austin exported stills from the moment she climbed the ladder to when she started yelling. Marie printed out maps showing the property line, the zoning classification, the ag exemption filings. I contacted my livestock vet, Dr. Hannah Brody, and she agreed to sign an affidavit that Red was stable, registered, and had no history of aggression. We even found Karen's own voice in one of the clips just after she climbed the fence. Clear as day. Let's see if he really has bulls or if that's just to scare people off. Game, set, trespass. Rochelle said we'd counterclaim if necessary for harassment, property violation, damages to the fence panel Karen bent trying to claw her way out, plus legal fees. The only person not rattled by any of it was Red. He just kept chewing his cud like nothing happened. The first court summons was scheduled 2 weeks out, but the circus started long before that. 3 days after getting the complaint, I found flyers taped to my mailbox, gate, and fence posts along the county road. Cheap printer paper, black and white, with bold letters across the top. Warning, dangerous livestock hazard. Below that, a blurry screenshot of Karen mid-sprint, one heel in the air and Red somewhere behind her in the pasture. The caption read, "This woman was nearly killed by an uncontained bull while trying to assess environmental safety for our children. Report unsafe conditions to Oakview HOA." I stood at the mailbox for a good minute, just holding the paper. Then I laughed so hard I had to sit down on the tailgate. Marie didn't laugh. She looked like she was ready to take a shovel to Karen's front porch. "This woman's turning herself into a martyr," she said. What's next? HOA sponsored picketing on our driveway. Almost. That Sunday, I came back from the feed store to find a woman I'd never seen before standing by the ditch outside our gate. She had a clipboard and a toddler, both of which she was waving like protest signs. "Excuse me," she called as I pulled in. "We're organizing concerned parents against livestock hazards." "Lady," I said through the window, "this isn't a zoo. It's a working ranch. And if you don't get off my easement, I'll be organizing a police report for trespassing." She left, but I knew that wouldn't be the end of it. Karen had turned the narrative. In her eyes, and now the eyes of a handful of HOA followers, she was a crusader for public safety, and I was the angry, dangerous redneck with bloodthirsty cattle. Rochelle told me not to respond publicly. "Let them blow steam," she said. "The judge won't care about flyers or angry moms with clipboards. We focus on the facts," so I focused. I met with the vet again, got a signed letter on official letterhead stating Red and the other bulls were documented, manageable, and no threat unless provoked. I pulled municipal zoning maps, got notarized proof that our land was fully outside Oakview's jurisdiction, and had our ag classification recertified, just in case they tried to challenge it. Meanwhile, the HOA began hinting online that they were considering future litigation to challenge adjacent land use. Someone on Nextdoor posted, "Why does this dangerous livestock facility even exist next to families?" I posted once, just once, under my real name, "Because this facility predates your subdivision by 72 years and is protected under Texas Agricultural Code. Also, the dangerous livestock didn't chase anyone until someone illegally climbed a fence. Stay off my land, and your yoga pants will stay clean." That post got 200 likes and mysteriously disappeared within a day. The stress wasn't small. Marie stopped going to the local grocery because HOA folks kept glaring at her or whispering. Austin had to change his route to class because someone put up a printed bull owner Darvish lawsuit incoming sign near the community college lot. But the worst came a week before the hearing. A man from the city's animal control office showed up, said they'd received an anonymous complaint that my bulls were being kept in unsafe conditions and that I was intentionally exposing them to public foot traffic. I walked him straight to the fence line and showed him the locks, the triple gates, the reinforced paneling. I showed him the perimeter alarms, the posted signs, the active video surveillance. "You have the most secure livestock enclosure I've seen this year," he said flatly. "Whatever this is, it's not about animal safety. Someone's harassing you." "Karen Melrose," I said. He sighed. "Figured. Her name's been flagged on 5 nuisance reports already this year." Still, it rattled me. This wasn't just a civil suit anymore. Karen was trying to wear me down through attrition, public shame, bureaucracy, complaints, neighborhood gossip. She wasn't looking for justice. She was looking to turn my life into a legal trench war. Marie wanted to counter with a restraining order. Rochelle told us to hold. "We'll let the court see the escalation. That'll make the countersuit stronger." We waited, but I was done playing defense. That night, I had Austin set up a new camera rig, infrared, high resolution, covering the entire east pasture and both gates. We installed motion lights, replaced every single no trespassing sign with weatherproof metal, and added 2 more along the shared roadside fence that said, "Private property, under video surveillance. Trespassers will be prosecuted and publicly." Embarrassed, and I meant every word of it. The morning of the hearing, I got up before sunrise. I didn't sleep much, and not because I was nervous. I was angry. Deep, quiet, angry. The kind that settles in your ribs and makes your coffee taste like gunpowder. Marie laid out my cleanest pair of jeans and my pressed pearl snap shirt. "You're not dressing up for them," she said. "You're dressing to remind them who you are." Austin offered to drive, but I told him to stay at the ranch and keep an eye on the pastures. The last thing I needed was a mysterious gate malfunction or some HOA volunteer trying to wander in during the court session. The county courthouse sat like a weathered monument of common sense in the middle of town. Wood-paneled, cracked concrete steps, one fluttering flag. I walked in with a hard drive under one arm and 3 folders under the other. Rochelle met me by the water fountain, dressed sharp, not a hair out of place. "Ready to bury her in her own nonsense?" she asked. "Born ready." Court was in session by 9. Karen showed up 5 minutes late, dressed like she was attending a charity gala, complete with pearls and a stiff expression that said she was playing the victim before we even sat down. She had a lawyer with her, slick, loud, the type who calls himself litigator on LinkedIn and drinks wine coolers unironically. The judge, an older woman with iron gray hair and readers on a chain, looked like she had zero patience for drama. I liked her instantly. Karen's lawyer opened with a long-winded speech about reckless disregard for community safety and gross negligence through animal management. He even said the word rural menace, which made me raise an eyebrow so high I nearly pulled something. Then came Karen's testimony. She swore under oath that she'd been concerned for neighborhood safety and simply wanted to verify if there was a health hazard present. She said she felt morally compelled to step onto the property for the sake of protecting children. According to her, the moment she crossed that fence, she was violently pursued by enraged livestock and feared for her life. She even dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, as if the performance bonus depended on it. Rochelle waited patiently, then stood up and plugged in the flash drive. The court watched in silence as the screen showed Karen methodically pulling out a ladder from her SUV, setting it up against the eastern fence, climbing over without hesitation, filming herself saying, "Let's see if he really has bulls, or if that's just to scare people off." The room went dead quiet. Next came the footage of her confidently walking through the pasture, then Red spotting her, the chase, the panic, her sprinting in circles, phone in one hand, purse in the other, her trying to yank on the fence, her yelling, "Stupid cow, stay away." The judge leaned forward, squinting at the screen. When the video ended, she sighed and turned to Karen. "Miss Melrose," she said, "you're telling this court you were concerned for public safety, yet you climbed a posted fence onto private agricultural land without invitation and antagonized livestock. On camera?" Karen froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her lawyer stood and tried to pivot. "Your Honor, regardless of the footage, the emotional distress my client experienced." The judge held up a hand. "The only emotional distress I see is yours, counselor, from realizing how badly this is going for you." She turned to Rochelle. "Any additional evidence, Ms. Montgomery?" Rochelle handed over the printed affidavits, the zoning maps, the ag exemption certification, the livestock vet statement, the sheriff's incident report confirming no wrongdoing. She even included the city's animal control findings. All clean, all tight. I watched Karen shrink by the minute. The judge took a 10-minute recess to review the materials. I stood outside with Rochelle on the courthouse steps. The breeze smelled like dry cedar and nervous sweat. "She's toast," Rochelle said. "We'll get a full dismissal. Question is whether you want to counter." "I do," I said immediately. "She didn't just climb a fence. She's been trying to destroy my livelihood and reputation." "And we'll prove that," she nodded. Back inside, the judge returned with a decision so swift it nearly knocked Karen over. The plaintiff's claim is dismissed in its entirety. This court finds that the trespass was deliberate, the danger self-inflicted, and the defense's evidence overwhelming. Furthermore, this court is prepared to consider the defendant's right to file for damages and fees. Karen's face went slack. Her lawyer sat down like someone had cut his strings. As we stood to leave, the judge added, "Miss Melrose, the next time you feel compelled to climb someone's fence, I suggest you ask permission first, or invest in a treadmill instead." By the time we pulled out of the courthouse parking lot, Karen's reputation was already bleeding out in the group chats and Facebook pages like a stuck pig at a butcher's convention. I didn't even need to say a word. The courtroom video spoke louder than a Sunday preacher in July. The local paper ran a headline the next morning. Judge tosses $500,000 HOA lawsuit against rancher. She climbed the fence. Underneath was a screenshot of Karen mid-sprint, her pearls flying in opposite directions as Red gave her a respectful distance but firm encouragement. It was the talk of the town. Even old-timers who'd never set foot past the feed store were stopping by the ranch just to tip their hat and chuckle. The sheriff's office sent me a polite note saying, "No further action pending," and the city's animal control followed up to apologize for the inconvenience. But Oak View HOA wasn't done making fools of themselves. A few days after the ruling, they sent out an official community-wide bulletin. It read, in part, "While the HOA respects the court's decision, residents are advised that the adjacent property remains a concern and should not be approached. The board is reviewing options for ensuring neighborhood safety, including legal remedies." Marie read it out loud at breakfast and nearly choked on her toast. They're doubling down. After all that, Looks like Karen infected the whole board with whatever virus makes you think fences are suggestions. I muttered. I called Rochelle and told her it was time. She filed a formal motion for civil damages, trespassing, defamation, harassment, and legal fees. We attached every shred of proof, not just the video, but copies of the flyers, the false HOA bulletins, the anonymous complaints to animal control, and even statements from 2 local business owners who'd overheard HOA members spreading slander about my ranch. We didn't aim low. The claim was for $88,000, enough to cover legal costs, perimeter reinforcement, livestock stress-related damages verified by my vet, and defamation. The best part, because the original suit was so baseless and my property was never under HOA jurisdiction, we didn't just sue Karen. We sued Oakview HOA directly as a co-responsible entity. That rattled their little beehive. Within 48 hours, their legal counsel contacted Rochelle to initiate dialogue on a potential out-of-court settlement. They offered $10,000 and a public apology on their website. We declined. A week later, they upped it to $35,000 and proposed replacing their president to move forward amicably. We declined again. Then came the breaking point, a whistleblower from within. A man named Jeremy Elkins, mid-30s, HOA board member, apparently had enough. He came by my ranch one morning with a binder in hand and a look of someone who'd just quit a cult. "She's out of control," he said, shaking his head. I told them not to escalate. I told them to leave you alone. But Karen kept pushing it, even after the lawsuit bombed. He handed me the binder, printouts of internal emails, notes from HOA meetings, even one memo titled, "Strategy for Establishing Control Over Adjacent Agricultural Lot." "I'm resigning," he said. And I figured you should see what they were planning next. They were even talking about trying to get zoning pressure through county commissioners. I thanked him and immediately passed the materials to Rochelle. She nearly jumped through the phone when she saw them. "This is gold," she said. "They just handed us intent. Malicious, coordinated, and fully documented." Meanwhile, Karen was unraveling. 2 days later, her porch was empty, her nameplate off the HOA community center door. Rumor had it the board voted her out in a special meeting. The vice president put out a statement about leadership transitions and restoring trust, but no one was fooled. I wasn't celebrating yet, though. They still had lawyers, still had funds, still had enough arrogance to try and wriggle out with a quiet check. But I had something better. The truth. On camera, on paper, and now straight from inside their own little empire. The final hearing landed on a cool Thursday morning, 3 weeks after Karen's spectacular fall from grace. Figurative this time, though I wouldn't have minded if it had involved another fence. Marie and I arrived early. Rochelle was already inside, organizing exhibits like a general planning for siege. Across the aisle, the HOA's new attorney looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen, notably, was absent. The judge, same as before, entered brisk and sharp. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and opened with a simple sentence. "Let's get this nonsense over with." Rochelle presented our case cleanly, documented trespass, sustained harassment, targeted defamation, and verified emotional and financial damages, including livestock stress. Then came the binder, the emails, the meeting notes, the zoning manipulation plans. The judge flipped through them slowly, frowning deeper with every page. When the HOA lawyer tried to deflect blame to individual actions of a former president, the judge cut him off. "Your organization mailed flyers," she said coldly. "Filed nuisance reports, considered zoning manipulation. You escalated. You're liable. We didn't need to say anything else." Verdict came fast. HOA Oakview to pay full damages, $88,000. Public retraction to be published through HOA bulletin, website, and local paper. HOA board required to attend a legal seminar on property rights hosted by the county. Karen Melrose named personally responsible for 20% of damages due to gross misconduct and reckless endangerment. I didn't smile in court, but Marie did. Outside, reporters gathered, local ones, one from Austin. Rochelle handled most of the talking, though they asked me for a comment. I just said she climbed a fence that wasn't hers and expected to run the place. Turns out, bulls don't care about HOA titles. That line made the evening news. Back at the ranch, peace returned slowly. The flyers stopped. The whispers faded. Jeremy, the whistleblower, joined the county zoning board not long after, promising to protect ranchers from HOA overreach. I told him he had my vote. Austin bought a used four-wheeler with the first slice of the settlement. I upgraded our east perimeter system and ordered new signage, not the standard aluminum kind. These were custom-made, cast iron mounted into treated cedar posts. The new sign at the eastern fence read, "Private Property." Trespassers will be recorded, reported, and probably chased. And below that, a smaller plaque. This area protected by bulls and common sense. A month later, I sold the camera footage rights to a regional documentary crew doing a series on rural land rights. They titled the episode "The Bull Stops Here." It aired during Sweeps Week and outperformed two reality shows. Karen, last I heard, she moved out of Oakview, citing unbearable hostility from uninformed residents. I doubt she'll be climbing any fences soon. As for me, I go to bed early, wake up with the sunrise, and walk my fence line like always. Only now, when I pass that stretch by the east gate, I tip my hat to Red. He didn't hurt anyone that day. He just did his job.